The sun sank over Dallas, Texas, painting the sky in hues of amber and crimson on that warm September evening in 1997. The Grand Pavilion Wedding Hall, a historic gem from the 1920s, stood proudly in the heart of the city, its marble columns and arched windows aglow with the promise of celebration. Tonight it was the stage for the union of Alexander "Alex" Harrington, a 28-year-old real estate prodigy, and Elena Vasquez, 26, heiress to a Tex-Mex restaurant empire. The wedding was more than a marriage. It was a merger of two influential Dallas families, the Harringtons and the Vasquezes, each bringing wealth, ambition, and a touch of rivalry to the altar. Inside, the hall buzzed with life. Crystal chandeliers cast prisms of light across the high ceilings, illuminating tables draped in white linen and adorned with red roses and white lilies. The air carried the scent of grilled brisket, enchiladas, and champagne, a fusion of Southern and Hispanic flavors. A live band alternated between country ballads and salsa rhythms, urging over 200 guests onto the polished oak dance floor. The crowd was a vibrant mix, the Harringtons in tailored suits and elegant gowns, their conversations peppered with talk of stock markets and country clubs, the Vasquezes animated and warm, with women in colorful dresses twirling and men clapping to the beat. Children weaved through the throng, balloons bobbing behind them, their laughter mingling with the music. At the head table, Alex and Elena glowed. Alex, with his sharp jawline and slicked back dark hair, exuded confidence in his tailored tuxedo. His athletic build, honed from college football, made him the picture of a successful groom. Elena, radiant in a white lace gown from a New York designer, her long black hair cascading in waves, was the embodiment of grace. Her olive skin shimmered under the lights, and her brown eyes sparkled with joy and a hint of nerves. This was her dream day, planned to perfection over the past year, from the imported champagne to the 5-tiered cake waiting in the wing. Clinging to Elena's side was her 7-year-old cousin Sophia, a bundle of energy in a frilly pink dress, with curly pigtails bouncing. Sophia was the unofficial mascot of the evening, her wide eyes drinking in the fairy tale scene. Elena had taken her under her wing, as Sophia's parents, distant relatives, were stuck in Mexico for work. "You're my little flower girl forever," Elena had whispered earlier, kissing Sophia's forehead. The child beamed, clutching a stolen cookie from the dessert table, her small hand never far from Elena's gown. To Sophia the hall was a castle, Elena a queen, and the night a magical adventure. The evening unfolded in waves of merriment. The band played Unchained Melody for the couple's first dance, Alex and Elena swaying in perfect harmony as guests cheered. Flashbulbs popped, capturing moments for albums that would never be filled. Toasts followed. Miguel Vasquez, Elena's father, a burly man with a curled mustache, raised his glass with tears in his eyes. "To my daughter and her new life," he said, his voice. Alex's mother, a poised woman in pearls, welcomed Elena with a southern drawl, her words dripping with charm. The crowd raised their glasses, the clinking of crystal echoing like a symphony. But beneath the joy a subtle unease simmered. It was faint, like a distant storm cloud, unnoticed by most, but felt by a few. Elena sensed it vaguely, dismissing it as wedding jitters. Alex was too busy shaking hands with business associates to notice. Sophia, however, with a child's unfiltered intuition, felt it keenly. She tugged at Elena's dress during a lull in the dancing. "Elena, that man is looking funny," she whispered, pointing toward a table near the back. Elena followed her gaze. There, among a cluster of distant acquaintances, sat an unfamiliar man in his his gaunt face and ill-fitting suit, too tight at the shoulders, too long at the cuffs, made him stand out. His hair was slicked with excessive gel, and his dark eyes were fixed on Alex with an intensity that wasn't celebratory. He didn't eat, didn't drink, just stared, his hands folded tightly in his lap. Every so often, he'd glance away, but his gaze always returned to the groom. "Who's that, mi amor?" Elena murmured to Alex. Alex squinted, then shrugged. "No clue, maybe one of Dad's business contacts, or from your side." He laughed it off. Weddings bring out all sorts. The man's presence lingered like a shadow. Others noticed him too. Miguel Vasquez made a mental note to check the guest list. Alex's cousin, Jared, a loud type with a few too many whiskeys, joked at his table. "That guy's staring like he wants to eat Alex. Jealous ex or what?" The laughter was uneasy. The wedding planner, Carla, was too busy coordinating the cake cutting to investigate. The night rolled on. The cake, a towering masterpiece with edible flowers, was wheeled out to applause. Alex and Elena fed each other bites, Sophia clapping on her tiptoes, her face smeared with frosting. The bouquet toss followed, single women giggling as Elena hurled the flowers into the air. The band played Celebration, and the crowd sang along, the mood electric. But the unease grew. The chandeliers flickered once, twice. During the garter toss, guests chuckled, blaming the hall's old wiring. Texas heat messing with everything. Someone called. Sophia clutched Elena's hand tighter. The unknown man had vanished from his seat, lost in the crowd. Alex wiped sweat from his brow, the room suddenly stifling. Then at 9:07 p.m., the world plunged into darkness. The chandeliers went black. The band's amplifiers died with a whine, and the hall, once a haven of light, was swallowed by an impenetrable void. Gasps filled the air, followed by nervous laughter. "Power outage," Alex shouted, his voice steady. "Stay put. The generators will kick it." Sophia whimpered. "Tia, it's dark." Elena pulled her close. "It's okay, baby. Just a minute." But it wasn't okay. The darkness was the curtain rising on a nightmare. The darkness engulfed the grand pavilion like a living thing, thick and suffocating. For a moment the only sounds were the rustle of dresses, the clink of dropped glasses, and the nervous murmurs of 200 guests. The band's instruments lay silent, their last notes swallowed by the void. Sophia clung to Elena's gown, her small fingers digging into the "Tia, I'm scared," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the growing unease. Elena knelt, her own heart racing, and hugged the girl tightly. "It's just the lights, mi amor. They'll be back soon." Alex's hand found Elena's shoulder, his grip firm but trembling. "Everyone stay calm," he called, his voice cutting through the murmurs. "Carla, check the breakers." The wedding planner, Carla, fumbled through the crowd toward the service entrance, her heels clicking on the oak floor. Guests began pulling out lighters and early model cell phones, their dim screens casting eerie glows on anxious faces. The air, once warm with celebration, now felt heavy, the humidity amplifying the tension. Somewhere, a child began to cry. Miguel Vasquez, Elena's father, stood near the head table, his silhouette barely visible. "Alex, where's the backup power?" he barked, his protective instincts kicking in. Before Alex could answer, a sound pierced the darkness, a sharp, unmistakable crack, then another, and another gunshot. The hall erupted in chaos. Screams tore through the air, raw and primal, as bodies hit the floor. Glass shattered, tables overturned, and the stench of gunpowder mingled with the floral scent. Sophia screamed, burying her face in Elena's dress. Elena dropped to her knees, pulling the girl beneath the head table, her wedding gown tangling around them. "Stay down, Sophia," she hissed, her voice shaking. Alex lunged to shield them, but a sickening thud cut his movement short. He collapsed, a dark stain spreading across his white shirt. "Alex!" Elena's scream was drowned by more gunfire, rapid and relentless. The darkness was a cruel ally to the unseen attackers. hiding their movements as they fired into the crowd. Guests scrambled blindly, tripping over chairs, colliding in their panic. A woman's wail was cut short by another shot. The band's drummer, still clutching his sticks, slumped over his kit. Miguel Vasquez shouted for his wife, Rosa, but his voice was lost in the cacophony. Sofia's small body trembled against Elena. The girl's eyes were wide, catching glints of light from a distant phone screen. She saw shapes moving, dark figures weaving through the chaos, their movements deliberate. One paused near the head table, a silhouette against the faint glow. Sofia caught a glimpse of a face, half-lit, familiar yet not. It was the man from earlier, the one with the staring eyes. His expression was cold, methodical. As he raised his arm, another shot rang out, and Elena's grip on Sofia slackened. The bride slumped forward, her veil pooling like spilled milk. Tia! Sofia's cry was muffled, as she curled into a ball, her pink dress smeared with something warm and sticky. The gunfire continued, sporadic now, as if the shooters were picking their target. Seconds stretched into eternity. The darkness, a canvas for terror. Then, as suddenly as it began, the shooting stopped. Footsteps echoed, heavy and rapid, fading toward the service entrance. Silence descended, broken only by sobs and the drip of something wet on the floor. Then light. The chandeliers flickered back on, their glow harsh and unforgiving. The grand pavilion was no longer a place of celebration, but a slaughterhouse. Bodies lay strewn across the floor, some still, others twitching. Blood pooled on the oak, seeping into the white linen. The cake, once a symbol of joy, was toppled, its frosting smeared like a grotesque painting. Guests, who survived, cowered under tables or clutched loved ones, their faces pale with shock. Sofia peeked from beneath the head table, her breath hitched. Elena lay motionless, her eyes open but unseeing, a red stain blooming across her chest. Alex was beside her, his hand outstretched as if reaching for her even in death. Sofia's small hand touched Elena's face, but there was no response. Tia, she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. Nearby, Miguel Vasquez knelt beside his wife, Rosa, who clutched a wound in her side, her breathing shallow. Stay with me, Rosa, he pleaded, his voice breaking. The wail of sirens grew louder, cutting through the stunned silence. Police cars screeched to a halt outside, their lights flashing through the hall's tall windows. Officers stormed in, guns drawn, shouting for everyone to stay down. Paramedics followed, their faces grim, as they assessed the carnage. Over here, one yelled, rushing to Rose. Another checked Alex and Elena, shaking his head. They're gone, he muttered. Sofia was found curled beneath the table, her pink dress soaked crimson. A young officer, Officer Daniels, knelt beside her. Hey, sweetheart, you're safe now, he said softly, though his eyes betrayed his horror. She didn't speak, her gaze fixed on Elena's lifeless form. The officer gently lifted her, carrying her past the chaos to an ambulance outside. The hall was cordoned off, yellow tape snapping in the evening breeze. Detectives arrived, their notebooks already open, faces set in determination. The guest list was checked, but the unknown man, the one Sofia had pointed out, was nowhere to be found. His table was empty, his glass untouched. Carla, the planner, stammered that she didn't know him. The guest list had been vetted, but +1s were common. He must have slipped in, she said, wringing her hands. As the night wore on, the body count rose. 32 dead, including the bride and groom. 50 injured. The headlines would soon scream, Dallas Wedding Massacre, a name that would haunt the city for decades. Sofia, the sole survivor near the head table, was taken to a hospital, her small frame shivering under a blanket. She clutched a piece of Elena's veil, torn in the chaos, her only tether to the fairy tale that had turned into a nightmare. Outside, the media descended, cameras flashing, as reporters shouted questions. The police chief, a grizzled man named Hargrove, addressed the crowd. We're treating this as a targeted attack, he said, his voice steady but strained. We'll find who did this. But in the harsh light of the chandeliers, the truth was already slipping away, hidden in the shadows of the night.
The morning after the massacre, Dallas awoke to a city in mourning. The Grand Pavilion, once a symbol of celebration, was now a crime scene. Its marble facade draped in yellow tape, news vans lined the street, their antennas piercing the gray dawn. Headlines screamed across front pages. Dallas Wedding Massacre, 32 dead, in brutal attack. The airwaves buzzed with speculation, from gang violence to a disgruntled employee. But the police had little to offer beyond Chief Hargrove's grim promise of justice. Inside the hall, detectives combed through the wreckage. The oak floor was sticky with blood, tables overturned, their linen stained red. Spent bullet casings littered the scene, glinting under the chandelier. Detective Sarah Langston, a 15-year veteran, with a reputation for cracking tough cases, led the investigation. Her partner, Detective Mike Torres, a former Marine with a knack for details, catalogued evidence. This wasn't random, Langston said, crouching near a cluster of casings. Under a table, look at the spread. Multiple shooters. Coordinated. Torres nodded, pointing to the service entrance. No forced entry. They were already inside. The realization hung heavy. The killers had been among the guests, blending in with the joyous crowd. The guest list, now a critical piece of evidence, was incomplete. Carla, the wedding planner, provided a partial roster, but plus ones and last-minute additions muddied the water. The unknown man Sophia had noticed was a ghost. No name, no record. Sophia, now in a hospital room, under police protection, was the investigation's only witness. The 7-year-old sat on a sterile bed, clutching the torn piece of Elena's veil. A child psychologist, Dr. Emily Chen, was brought in to speak with her. Sophia, can you tell me what you saw? Dr. Chen asked gently, her voice a calm anchor in the girl's storm of trauma. Sophia's eyes were distant, her voice small. A man he was looking at. Tio Alex. He was scary. She described the gaunt face, the slicked hair, the cold eyes. He was there when the lights went out. I saw him standing over Tio Elena. Her words were vague, fragmented by fear, but they were a start. Dr. Chen took notes, careful not to push too hard. He felt familiar, Sophia added, her brow furrowing. Like I saw him before, but not really. Langston and Torres pored over the evidence. Ballistics confirmed multiple weapons, 9mm 10 guns, and at least one assault rifle. The shooters had targeted key figures, Alex, Elena, and several family members on both sides. Miguel Vasquez, who survived with a grazed arm, was inconsolable, his wife Rosa fighting for her life in ICU. Who would do this? He demanded, his voice raw. We're a family, not a cartel. But whispers of old rivalries surfaced. The Vasquez's restaurant chain had edged out competitors, some with ties to less savory elements in Dallas. The Harringtons, too, had enemies. Real estate deals often left bitter losers. Langston dug into the family's histories, uncovering a decades-old feud between the Vasquez and a rival restaurateur, Victor Kane, whose business had collapsed after losing a prime location to Miguel. Kane's name wasn't on the guest list, but Sophia's description matched photos from old business records. Could be him, Torres said, pinning the photo to their board. The physical evidence told a story of plan. Casings were found under tables far from the head table, suggesting shooters had positioned themselves strategically before the blackout. The power outage itself was suspicious. The breaker box showed signs of tampering, a deliberate cut to plunge the hall into chaos. They knew the layout, Langston said. This was an inside job, or damn close to it. Rumors spread through the city. The wedding had been arranged, a union to solidify business ties. Some whispered of dissent. Alex's cousin Jared, a volatile man with a history of jealousy, had argued with Alex weeks before. Elena's ex-boyfriend Carlos Mendez, a chef with a temper, was another name floated. Then there was Kane, the business rival, whose grudge against Miguel was well known. The media latched onto the story, fueling fear. Is Dallas safe? One headline blared. Langston interviewed Jared, who was nursing a hangover and a bandage from a minor wound. Yeah, I was pissed about Alex getting the family trust, he admitted, his eyes bloodshot. But I didn't kill him. Carlos, tracked down at his apartment, was equally defensive. I loved Elena. I'd never hurt her. Both had alibis. Shaky but plausible. The investigation stalled. The lack of clear motive frustrating the team. Sophia's fragmented memories were the only thread. Dr. Chen worked patiently, using drawings to coax details. Sophia sketched a man with sharp cheekbones and dark eyes. His suit too big. He was near the cake, she said, pointing to her drawing. Before it got the cake's location, near the service entrance, suggested the man had access to the staff areas. Langston ordered a sweep of the hall's back rooms, but nothing conclusive turned up. As days passed, Dallas reeled. Funerals began, each a somber reminder of the loss. The Harringtons buried Alex in a private ceremony, their grief laced with anger. Miguel at Rosa's bedside vowed revenge. I'll find them myself if I have to, he told Langston, his eyes burning. The detective urged restraint, but the city's fear was palpable. Schools increased security. Weddings were cancelled. The massacre wasn't just a crime. It was a wound on Dallas's soul. Late one night, Torres found a clue. A partial fingerprint on a casing, near the head table. It didn't match any guests, but was flagged in a database linked to a low-level enforcer, Eddie Ruiz, known to work for hire. Ruiz was nowhere to be found. His apartment empty. He's a ghost, just like our mystery man, Torres said, slamming the file shut. Langston stared at Sophia's drawing, a gaunt face haunting her. This wasn't random, she repeated, her voice low. And it's not over. The investigation was just beginning, and the truth was buried deeper than they knew. The Dallas Wedding Massacre dominated headlines a week after the tragedy, the city gripped by a mix of fear and fascination. The Grand Pavilion remained sealed, a grim monument to the 32 lives lost. Detective Sarah Langston and Mike Torres worked around the clock, their precinct, a maze of evidence bags, photos, and half-drunk coffee cups. The pressure was immense. Chief Hargrove faced daily press conferences, dodging questions about suspects, while the media speculated wildly. Wedding killer still at large, one tabloid screamed, alongside a blurry photo of the blood-stained hall. The investigation had hit a wall. The partial fingerprint on the casing led to Eddie Ruiz, a hired gun with ties to Dallas's underbelly, but he'd vanished. Sophia's drawing of the gaunt man, possibly Victor Kane, was their best lead, but Kane, too, was a ghost. His old business associates claimed he'd left Dallas years ago, after his restaurant chain collapsed. Guy was a wreck, one said, lost everything to Vasquez, yet no one could confirm his whereabouts. Langston focused on the physical evidence, the lack of forced entry at the service entrance, gnawed at her. The shooters were either on the guest list, or had access to the hall's layout, she told Torres, studying blueprints of the pavilion. The service entrance led to a warren of back rooms, storage, a kitchen, a staff break area, all unchecked during the wedding's chaos. A maintenance worker reported seeing a man in an ill-fitting suit near the breaker box, hours before the blackout, but the description was vague. Looked like he belonged, but didn't. A breakthrough came from an unexpected source, the wedding videographer, a nervous man named Paul Delgado. He'd survived by hiding behind a speaker stack, his camera rolling, until it was knocked over. The tape recovered from the debris was damaged, the last half corrupted. The first half showed the reception in vivid detail. Guests dancing, Alex and Elena laughing, Sophia twirling in her pink dress. Then just before the blackout, a figure crossed the frame, the gaunt man, his face partially obscured, moving toward the service entrance. That's him, Sophia confirmed, her voice trembling, as she watched with Dr. Chen. The scary man. The tape offered no clear ID, but it confirmed the man's presence near the critical area. Langston ordered a forensic enhancement, but the results would take days. Meanwhile, the suspect list grew. Jared Harrington, Alex's cousin, remained a person of interest. His alibi, drunk and flirting with a bridesmaid, was shaky, and his resentment over the family trust was well documented. Elena's ex, Carlos Mendez, was another lead. Co-workers reported he'd been erratic since the breakup, though he swore he was home that night. Then there was Victor Kane, whose grudge against Miguel Vasquez made him a prime suspect. If only they could find him. Interrogations yielded little. Jared, sweating under Langston's questions, snapped, "I'm not a killer. Alex was a jerk sometimes, but I didn't want him dead." Carlos was calmer but evasive, his eyes darting away when asked about his movements. "I was over Elena," he insisted. "Why would I ruin her day?" Neither had a clear motive for a massacre, but their stories didn't fully align with witness accounts. The city's fear escalated. Rumors of a serial killer spread, fueled by the brutality of the attack. Schools locked down. Businesses hired security. The massacre wasn't just a crime. It was a specter haunting Dallas. Miguel Vasquez, now a widower after Rosa succumbed to her injuries, became a vocal presence. "The police are useless," he told reporters, his face haggard. "I'll pay anyone who finds the bastards who did this." His reward offer, $100,000, sparked a flood of tips. Most useless. Sophia, still in protective custody, struggled to process her trauma. Dr. Chen used play therapy, encouraging her to draw more scenes. One sketch showed the gaunt man holding something shiny. "A gun," Sophia confirmed. "He was near Tia Elena," she said, her voice barely audible. "He looked at her like he hated her." The psychologist noted Sophia's mention of familiarity again, suggesting the girl might have seen the man at a family event, perhaps years earlier. Langston cross-referenced Vasquez family photos, but nothing. A new clue emerged. A security camera from a nearby gas station caught a grainy image of a man resembling Sophia's description, leaving the pavilion's parking lot. Minutes after the shooting, he climbed into a dark sedan, license plate unreadable. "That's our guy Torres," slamming the photo onto their board. But the trail went cold. No car, no Kane, no Ruiz. The investigation turned to the family's pasts. The Vasquez rise in the restaurant business had crushed competitors, including Kane's chain. Old articles detailed lawsuits and accusations of sabotage. The Harringtons, too, had their share of enemies. Alex's father, Richard, had outbid rivals for prime real estate, leaving bad blood. "This feels personal," Langston said. Someone wanted both families to suffer. As the second week ended, a chilling development. A florist who delivered to the wedding reported an odd request. Days before the event, someone had called to confirm the delivery time, insisting on access to the service entrance. The voice was male, clipped, unfamiliar. The florist hadn't thought much of it until now. They knew the schedule, Torres said. This was planned down to the minute. The media frenzy intensified. Dallas Wedding Massacre. Inside job, one headline speculated. Langston and Torres felt the weight of a city watching, judging. They needed a break, something to tie the clues together. Sophia's memories, the partial tape, the fingerprint, all pointed to a calculated attack. But the why and who remained elusive. As Langston stared at the evidence board, Sophia's drawing of the gaunt man seemed to stare back, mocking her. The truth was out there, but it was buried in a web of secrets and lies.
3 weeks after the massacre, the Dallas Police Department was drowning in pressure. The media hounded Chief Hargrove daily, and the city's elite, many connected to the Harringtons or Vasquezes, demanded answers. Detectives Sarah Langston and Mike Torres worked 18-hour days, their lives reduced to case files and stale coffee. The evidence board in their precinct was a chaotic map of photos, timelines, and red string connecting suspects: Jared Harrington, Carlos Mendez, Victor Kane, and the elusive Eddie Ruiz. Sophia's drawing of the gaunt man was pinned at the center, her child's scrawl a haunting reminder of the only witness. Sophia, now in a safe house with a foster family, was the investigation's linchpin. Dr. Emily Chen, the psychologist, pushed for hypnosis to unlock her memories, a controversial move, but one Langston approved. "She's our best shot," Langston told Torres, though she hated putting the girl through more trauma. In a quiet room, under Dr. Chen's gentle guidance, Sophia's eyes fluttered closed. Tell me about the man, Sophia, Chen said softly. What do you see? Sophia's voice was distant. He was by the cake. His suit was too big. He looked at Tia Alex like he was mad. I saw him before. At Tia Elena's restaurant. Maybe. Her words sent a jolt through Langston, who was observing. The Vasquez family's flagship restaurant, La Cantina, was a Dallas staple. If Sophia had seen the man there, it tied him to the family's past. He had a shiny thing, Sophia continued. A gun. He stood over Tia Elena. Then it was loud. The session yielded a name, Uncle Victor. Sophia didn't know why she said it, but it clicked. Victor Kane, the failed restaurateur, had been a family acquaintance years ago, before his feud with Miguel Vasquez. Photos from La Cantina's opening in the 80s showed a younger Kane, with Miguel, their smiles strained. He's our guy, Langston said, her pulse racing, but Kane was still missing. His last known address a vacant lot. The hypnosis breakthrough led to action. Langston arrested Jared Harrington, whose name Sophia had also mentioned, recalling him arguing with Alex at a family gathering. Jared, now sober and shaken, denied everything. I was drunk at the wedding. Sure, but I didn't shoot anyone, he protested. His alibi held witnesses confirmed he was on the dance floor when the lights went out. Still, Langston held him, hoping to rattle him into revealing something. Then a shock. Another murder. Paul Delgado, the videographer, was found dead in his apartment, a single gunshot to the head. His camera equipment was smashed, but a hidden backup drive contained the missing half of the wedding tape. The footage was grainy, but it showed the gaunt man, near the service entrance, handing something to another figure. That's Ruiz, Torres said, recognizing the enforcer's build from mugshots. The tape was a gold mine, but Delgado's death raised the stakes. Someone's tying up loose ends, Langston said grimly. The media exploded with the new killing. Wedding massacre linked to videographer's murder. Headlines screamed. Public panic surged, with talk of a conspiracy gripping Dallas. Miguel Vasquez, now a broken man, doubled his reward to $200,000, drawing a flood of false leads. They killed my daughter, my wife, he told Langston, his voice hollow. Find them or I will. His grief was turning to rage, and Langston worried he'd take matters into his own hands. The investigation dug deeper into Kane. Old associates painted him as bitter, a man who blamed Miguel for his downfall. He talked about revenge. A former partner said he'd make Vasquez pay, but Kane's trail was cold. Bank accounts empty. No recent sighting. Torres tracked down Ruiz's known haunts, but the enforcer had vanished, likely tipped off by Delgado's murder. Sophia's memories provided another clue. During therapy, she recalled the gaunt man speaking to someone before the blackout, near the buffet. He said something about making it right, she whispered. Langston cross-referenced the guest list again, focusing on anyone near the buffet. A caterer recalled a man matching Kane's description loitering there, but he'd assumed he was a guest. He didn't eat, just watched, the caterer said. The tape's second half revealed more. The gaunt man met a third figure, too shadowed to identify, in the service corridor. They exchanged a bag, money, weapons. The tape cut off before the blackout. Forensic enhancement clarified little, but the bag's shape suggested firearms. This was a hit squad, Torres said. Kane, Ruiz, and at least one other. The investigation pivoted to the family's enemy. The Harringtons' real estate deals had alienated developers, but none stood out like Kane's grudge against the Vasquez. Langston interviewed Miguel again, pressing for details. Kane was a friend once, he admitted, his face ashen. We parted ways bad. He thought I cheated him out of a deal. Miguel's voice faltered. If he did this, it's my fault. As the fourth week loomed, the pressure was unbearable. The mayor called Hargrove, demanding results. Langston and Torres felt the weight of a city watching, judging. Sophia's sketches and memories haunted them. The gaunt man's face, a constant taunt.
The truth was close, but it was tangled in a web of betrayal and revenge, and someone was killing to keep it buried. A month after the massacre, Dallas was a city on edge. The Grand Pavilion remained sealed, its windows dark, a grim reminder of the 32 lives lost. Detectives Sarah Langston and Mike Torres were running on fumes, their lives consumed by the case. The evidence board now sprawled across 2 walls, a labyrinth of clues pointing to Victor Kane, Eddie Ruiz, and an unknown third player. Sofia's testimony, bolstered by hypnosis, had solidified Kane as the gaunt man, but he remained a phantom. The videographer's murder had sent a clear message. Someone was silencing witnesses. The investigation shifted to the Vasquez family's past. Miguel Vasquez, now a shell of his former self, provided a lead. In the 80s, he and Kane had been partners in a restaurant venture. When Miguel outbid Kane for a prime Dallas location, their friendship soured, Kane's chain collapsed, and he vanished, but not before threatening Miguel. He said, "I'd regret it." Miguel told Langston, his hands trembling, "I thought he was just angry. I never imagined this." Langston dug into Kane's connections. A tip from a former associate led to a warehouse on the city's outskirts, once leased by Kane's company. A raid uncovered nothing but dust and old menus, but a hidden compartment held a burner phone with a single number. It traced to a payphone near La Cantina, the Vasquez's flagship restaurant. He was watching them, Torres said, his voice tight. This was years in the making. The recovered wedding tape offered more. Forensic enhancement revealed the third figure in the service corridor, a man in a staff uniform, likely a plant. His face was obscured, but his build didn't match Ruiz or Kane. "We're looking at a team," Len Langston said. "Kane planned it, Ruiz executed, and this guy was the inside." The tape showed the bag exchange, likely guns, and a brief embrace between Kane and the mystery man. They knew each other well, Torres noted. "This is personal." The focus turned to the Vasquez's business rivals. Miguel's success had made enemies, but one stood out: Lorenzo Marquez, a Dallas restaurateur, with rumored ties to a Mexican cartel. Marquez's chain, El Fuego, had lost market share to La Cantina. Old police reports linked Marquez to money laundering, but nothing stuck. If Kane needed muscle, Marquez could have supplied it, Torres said. A search warrant for Marquez's properties was denied. Lack of evidence, but Langston tailed him, noting his meetings with shady figures at a downtown bar. Sofia's therapy sessions continued. She recalled more details. The gaunt man, Kane, had spoken to someone in a whisper, saying, "It ends tonight." Dr. Chen noted Sofia's fear when describing the staff-uniformed man. "He was at the restaurant too," she said, clutching her sketch. "He gave me a lollipop once." Langston cross-referenced La Cantina's staff records, finding a former employee, Raul Gomez, fired for theft. Gomez's photo matched the build of the tape's mystery man. A sting operation targeted Gomez. He was found in a seedy motel, strung out on drugs. Under interrogation he cracked. "I didn't shoot anyone," he sobbed. "I just let them in. Kane paid me. Said it was about settling a score." Gomez confirmed Kane's role, but claimed ignorance of the full plan. He described Ruiz as the trigger man, hired by a big boss he never met. "They wanted the Vasquez and Harringtons gone," he said. "It was about power." Gomez's confession pointed to Marquez. Langston and Torres set up surveillance, catching Marquez meeting a man resembling Kane in a parking garage. Photos were blurry, but the pieces fit. Kane's revenge, funded by Marquez's cartel connections. The massacre was a power play, eliminating 2 families to clear the way for Marquez's empire. But before they could move, another murder rocked the case. Gomez was found dead in his cell, an apparent suicide. Evidence suggested otherwise. A guard reported a visitor, but the log was missing. "They're cleaning house," Langston said, her voice grim. The investigation was closing in, but the killers were always a step ahead. Miguel Vasquez, driven by grief, hired a private investigator, complicating things. "I don't trust you people," he told Langston, his eyes hollow. The PI turned up a lead, A safe deposit box in Kane's name, containing documents linking him to Marquez. But when police moved to seize it, the box was empty. Someone had been tipped off. As the fifth week ended, the puzzle pieces aligned. Kane's grudge, Marquez's money, Ruiz's guns, Gomez's betrayal. The massacre was a calculated hit, not just revenge, but a strategic move in Dallas's underworld. Langston and Torres prepared to confront Marquez, knowing they were walking into a lion's den. The truth was within reach, but it came with a cost. 6 weeks after the Dallas Wedding Massacre, the city's wounds were still raw. The Grand Pavilion stood abandoned, its once grand facade a ghost in the Dallas skyline. Detectives, Sarah Langston and Mike Torres, were close to cracking the case, but the cost was mounting. The deaths of Paul Delgado and Raul Gomez, coupled with Victor Kane's and Eddie Ruiz's disappearance, pointed to a conspiracy larger than anyone had imagined. Lorenzo Marquez, the cartel-linked restaurateur, was now the investigation's focal point, his shadow looming over the evidence. The truth began to unravel with a raid on Marquez's downtown office. Hidden in a false wall, police found ledgers detailing payments to Ruiz and a contract with Kane's signature. The documents confirmed a deal. Kane would orchestrate the massacre to eliminate the Vasquezes and Harringtons, clearing the way for Marquez's El Fuego chain to dominate Dallas's restaurant scene. In return, Marquez's cartel connections provided funds and muscle. This wasn't just revenge, Langston said, studying the ledgers. It was a takeover. The wedding tape, now fully enhanced, revealed the final piece. The staff-uniformed man was indeed Gomez, caught embracing Kane before the blackout. Their familiarity suggested a long-standing alliance, likely forged in the ashes of Kane's failed business. Gomez's confession before his suspicious death filled in gaps. He'd sabotaged the breaker box and opened the service entrance, allowing Ruiz and 2 other gunmen to slip inside. The blackout was their signal, the chaos their cover. Langston and Torres moved to arrest Marquez. A SWAT team stormed his mansion, but he was gone, tipped off hours earlier. A manhunt ensued, with Kane and Ruiz also in the way. They're headed for Mexico, Torres said, citing cartel escape routes. The FBI was called in, their jurisdiction crossing borders, but the trail was cold. Marquez's wealth and connections made him untouchable, at least for now. The trial of the century never came. With the main culprits gone, only minor players, 2 low-level cartel enforcers, faced charges. They pleaded guilty to accessory roles, naming Marquez and Kane, but offering no proof to convict them. The case stalled. The killers beyond Miguel Vasquez, broken by loss, attended every court hearing, his reward money unclaimed. They took everything, he told Langston, his voice a whisper. And you let them walk. Sophia, now 8, was placed in witness protection. Her sketches and testimony had been crucial, but the trauma lingered. Dr. Chen worked with her to process the horror, but Sophia's nightmares persisted. Images of the gaunt man, of Elena's lifeless eyes. I want to forget, she told Chen, clutching the torn veil. Her new identity took her far from Dallas, her past sealed away. The media dubbed the case the Unsolved Massacre, a stain on Dallas's history. Conspiracy theories flourished. Some blamed a larger cartel war, others a government cover-up. Langston and Torres, haunted by their failure, kept the case open, chasing leads that dwindled with time. We were so close, Torres, staring at the evidence board, now gathering dust. Years later, in 2015, a grown Sophia, now living as Emma in a quiet Midwestern town, walked past a newsstand. A headline caught her eye. Dallas restaurateur, found dead in Mexico. Marquez's body had been discovered, a victim of cartel infight. Kane and Ruiz remained ghosts, their fates unknown. Sophia paused, the torn veil still in a box under her bed, a relic of the night that shaped her. She was a teacher now, her life rebuilt, but the shadows of 1997 never faded. The final scene. Sophia, standing by a lake, watches the sunset. She drops a single white lily into the water, a tribute to Elena. I'm okay, Tia, she whispers, her voice steady but soft. Dallas had moved on. But for her, the massacre was a wound that time could only scar. Never heal. The mystery unsolved lingered in the city's memory, a haunting reminder that some truths remain buried. In the heart of Dallas, Texas, where the summer heat lingers into fall, September 19, the Grand Pavilion Wedding Hall, a relic of 1920s opulence, glowed under the twilight sky, its chandeliers casting a warm light over a celebration that united two powerful families, the Harringtons, titans of real estate, and the Vasquezes, lords of a Tex-Mex empire. Alexander Harrington and Elena Vasquez, young and radiant, stood at the altar of love and ambition, their wedding a beacon of hope in a city pulsing with dreams. Over 200 guests danced, laughed and toasted to a future that seemed boundless. Unaware of the shadows lurking among them, a little girl, Sophia, twirled in her pink dress, clinging to her cousin Elena, the bride, who was her fairy tale queen. The band played, champagne flowed, and the air buzzed with celebration. But beneath the surface, a quiet tension simmered, a stranger's cold stare, a flicker of unease in the bride's smile, a whisper of old grudges buried in the family's pasts. No one could have known that the night, so full of promise, would end in darkness. At 9:07 p.m., the lights went out. Gunshots shattered the joy, and the Grand Pavilion became a slaughterhouse. 32 lives were extinguished, including the bride and groom, their blood staining the oak floor. Only Sophia, a 7-year-old witness, survived the carnage at the head table, her memories fragmented by terror. What began as a union of love ended as a massacre that would scar Dallas forever. This is the story of the Dallas Wedding Massacre, 1997, a tale of betrayal, revenge, and secrets that unravel across 7 parts. From the joyous prelude to the haunting aftermath, it follows the detectives chasing a truth that slips through their fingers, a city gripped by fear, and a little girl whose survival holds the key to an unsolved mystery. In a world where love and ambition collide, some wounds never heal, and some shadows never fade.